Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads. Lee here, and welcome to my weekend books. I was going to start by saying that October's had highs and lows, but October has really had highs and mehs for me, M-E-H-S. So this week has been no exception. I don't know, is it me? I don't think so. Anywho. So I started the week reading Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby. This was a really good book. I do think this one I had a hard time reading for two reasons. One is it might have been me, and two, I watched the movie, and with both Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, the movie is really true to the book. As true, I think, as you could get. And I think watching the movie while I was reading the book made it more difficult to read the book because I just watched the movie and everything already happened. So I got a little bored. But I don't think it's a boring book. It is very creepy. There's a rape scene that you don't see-ish. Yeah. So I think it's a very creepy book. I think it was just, I should have watched the movie after. Lesson learned. So after that, I think I may have DNF'd a book, but I'm not sure what it was. But I just knew I was not in a great place. So I went off script and I read a nonfiction book next. And that was Ina Garten's Be Ready When the Luck Happens. I rarely read nonfiction to include memoirs in the evenings after work. But I made an exception for this and I loved it. I went into this with a preconceived notion of who Ina Garten was. I loved her cooking show. I like her recipes. She's got a cream of wild mushroom soup recipe that's fabulous. I still remember it, and I made it years ago. I might have to make it again. This book also includes recipes, but like I said, I started off with a preconceived notion that she is privileged, she lives in the Hamptons, and she does come from a privileged background. Her father was a surgeon, but privilege doesn't exempt you from abuse, physical and emotional, and that's what I really learned about in this book. It was very insightful. I loved learning about her life and how she made herself who she was and the chances that she took. She's got a great sense of humor. She talks about in school, for some reason, she can't believe it, her mother let her keep mice to train for some school project. And she called the project Amazing Mice. The most amazing thing about the mice was that they staged a jailbreak and scattered throughout the basement. My parents were furious. I had to find them one by one and put them back into their little cages. This was just a beautiful book. I'm so glad I read it. I did not know that Ina's husband, Jeffrey, was prior service, and he was stationed here at Fort Bragg, so that was a really, a very insightful, God damn with these texts. Okay, that's an alert. Very insightful. I loved learning about what Fayetteville was like back then. So if you have any interest in cooking or in Ina Garten, I do recommend this memoir. The next book that I read was really more of a novella. And when I went into it, I expected to be devastated. I was not. I found it actually very therapeutic. And I'll tell you why. That novella was Sophie Kinsella's What Does It Feel Like? If you have read any Sophie Kinsella, like Confessions of a Shopaholic, or what did I most, Can You Keep a Secret is one of my more recent reads. She talks about, she writes funny. It's funny. This book was not funny. Sophie Kinsella was diagnosed in, I believe, 2022 with a glioblastoma multiforme. That is a brain cancer, a brain tumor. It is highly aggressive. It is almost always fatal. And that is the same thing that my mom passed away from. So reading this book was, it's fiction. She calls it a novel, but it's also, she fictionalized it, she said, so she could take some liberties with some things. But it's also her experience with glioblastoma, and my cat is yowling. And it's told from her point of view, the point of view of the person with the illness. And from that aspect, as I said, it was very therapeutic, because when my mom was sick and dying, all I saw it from was from my perspective. This is how it must have felt for her in some cases. There are very, very big differences between Sophie and my mom. Sophie is like 10 years younger than my mom was when she was diagnosed. She seemed to get better health care both pre and post surgery. And she is still around 2 years later, so that is a huge difference. Anyway, this was very therapeutic. I didn't highlight or underline anything. Really, I just sat with this and listened to, I say listened, heard Sophie's experience through the eyes of Eve, the main character in this. I think the one part that really kind of did make me tear up a little bit is when they were sitting down to tell their children, and the little girl goes, "It's not fair." And no, it's not. It is not fair at all. Anywho. So, my fourth book of the week was a high. I gave this 3 or 4 stars, but I mean, it's not a happy book, and I did not expect it to be so. But it was well written, and I'm glad that I read it. But The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Allie Carter was fabulous. I loved this so much. I wrote, as I was finishing it up, do you ever get caught in a spiral of like bad or meh books and so-so books, and you think that you're just going to keep spiraling, and that you've lost the love for reading? This book, I thought, broke that spiral. When it did. This was fabulous. I loved it. If you want something light, kind of zany, minor spoiler here, you know from the get-go, he's got the hots for her and always has. I loved it. I loved everything about this book. It was just a good time. So I recommend this if you need something light, you need a palate cleanser. I highly recommend. The next book I thought was going to be great, and I ended up DNFing it. It is because The Nightmare Before Kissmass by Sarah Raasch is an example of great premise, poor execution. I got 57 pages in, and I was just like, the chapters are like 20 pages long, sometimes 20 plus, and a lot of times when I wake up thinking about a book the next morning, it's because I really liked it. I woke up thinking about this the next morning, and I was like, I don't want to finish it. I don't care about the characters. They're not interesting at all. Santa's evil, and I just not gonna. Coming on the heels of The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, this was just a miss for me. I'll tell you what it's about. Again, great premise. Execution? Nah. Nicholas Cole Claus used to love Christmas until his father, the reigning Santa, turned the holiday into a PR facade. Cole will do anything to escape the spectacle, including getting tangled in a drunken, supremely hot makeout session with a beautiful man behind a seedy bar one night. But the heir to Christmas is soon commanded to do his duty. He will marry his best friend Iris, the Easter princess, and his brother's not-so-secret crush, a situation that has disaster written all over it. Things go from bad to worse when a rival arrives to challenge Cole for the princess's hand. And Cole comes face to face with his mysterious behind-the-bar hottie, Hex, the Prince of Halloween. It's a fake competition between two holiday princes who can't keep their hands off each other over a marriage of convenience that no one wants. And it all leads to one of the sweetest, sexiest, messiest, most delightfully unforgettable love stories of the year. Ashley Herring Blake, who I like as an author, calls this a joyful, holly-covered romantic romp. It is not joyful. Cole spends a lot of time feeling sorry for himself, and I just, the characters felt thin. They're not interesting. I expected more lightness and movement, less in people's head. Anywho, so this was a disappointment. I am currently reading, this will make next week's My Week in Books, My Darling Dreadful Thing, and this has more movement and happiness than The Nightmare Before Christmas, Kissmass. Go figure. Anywho, I am really enjoying this book so far. I've got 141 pages into this in one evening, 57 into this in one evening, so that tells you how slower paced that one was. On the audio side, I'm struggling here as well. I think it is just the current story that I'm listening to. Some of these stories are really good. They've got one called The Rider by Tananarive Du, sorry. But I am on one called The Aesthete this far in, and it's not vibing for me. I had to do something that other people do all the time, but I don't. I had to speed up the narration because I don't like the story. I can't find a way on my car to skip it. And I still have a long way to go in here, but I keep turning it off because I don't like the story. I'll probably skip it on my phone, and then so it starts with the next story. Because I really want to like this. And some stories I do like. It's just, I think I've just got one that's not working for me. On the nonfiction side, I am still reading That Librarian by Amanda Jones. This too is a little meh. And it's her. She does some, there is a portion in here, and I don't have the book, it's in my work bag in the other room. There's a portion in here so far that talks about the selection process for libraries. Very informative. There's another part that talks about book bans in Escambia County, Florida. Also very informative. But a lot of it is her being upset and outraged, rightfully so. I just don't need that many pages about it. I would have preferred more focus on, again, the library selection process, book banning, and so I'm kind of skimming through this really quickly. It's just okay. I think the subject matter is very important. If you watch my channel, you know I am anti-book banning. I think she goes off on some personal tangents that take away from the impact of the story. Anywho, that is all I have for you guys today. Again, this has been a month of kind of highs and mehs, and I'm really seeking that high on my next book. I'm not getting a high from My Darling Dreadful Thing, but I'm really enjoying it. So this is going to go in, unless something happens, this is going to go into the, yeah, I really like this category. Not sure what I will do after that. I do have, for this week, for Tuesday, I plan to post a video about post-apocalyptic and apocalyptic fiction, which is one of my favorite subgenres. And hopefully I get that out tomorrow. And then I think I'm going to do a book haul, because I did a little, when I picked this one up, this is one that I had not hauled. I ended up picking up 4 or 5 other books, kind of on the Christmas romance rom-com thing. This was just a disappointment. Anywho, I hope you've had a good reading week. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. If you have any suggestions for me to read based on what you've seen on my reading, please hit me up down in the comments. I will put links to all these for bookshop.org down in the description box. And until next time, happy reading!